So, Sally, nice to meet you.
You too.
Tell me about yourself. Who are you? What do you love? What makes Sally Sally?
So I'm Sally Fuller, and I run the mobility portfolio for BT Business. I mean, all my life, what I've loved is technology and how it enables people to do great work and have better lives and be safer and healthier. And probably now there's never been a better time to be in my job, but also with that passion, because we've got some phenomenal changes happening, both in terms of the network and the network quality and what the network can support, but also in how humans are using mobile to enable what they love to do, but also how they can work and how they can save time and do their work better. So it's a good time to be doing this. Best job.
Good time to be a woman in technology as well. Good time to always be in technology. It's always changing. And, me, myself, I'm a technology enthusiast. I'm a cloud solution architect by nature. But I love how technology can solve problems. And I'm really keen to hear more about the problems that you're solving here and just learn more about what is enterprise mobility. How would you define it today and what would you kind of say the landscape looks like?
Well, thank you for being a cloud architect, because a lot of what we do wouldn't be possible without that talent and without that sort of design thinking that's gone into supporting platforms. And that's what's unleashing the power is the network platform, the cloud platforms, and the innovations that are coming with the devices and device partners. So mobility is, to me, it's about how do we help people get work done in a way that supports their business outcomes and their business intent. And it's almost, if it can't be done on a mobile device now, it's probably not worth doing. And so in fact, every organisation is really thinking about how do they create that mobile first environment for their people? How do they set it up so that whatever you need to do, you can do it on your mobile device or your tablet or your laptop with the right connectivity, with the right security, with the right design thinking about sustainability, but then thinking about the individual work tasks. How do organisations help serve their customers better in real time when they're out and about with the right information and the right skills and the right knowledge, with the ability to quickly phone a friend for help? There's so many different capabilities that can come onto those mobile devices, and every business and every sort of role is almost slightly different in how it will harness them. So it takes quite a lot of thinking about how are you going to set that up so it's brilliant for the user to use in a way that is supporting the customer's business values and what their compliance and their purpose, but also in a way that's future-proofed. So mobility is really at this point now where it's trying to pick through the opportunity, but also those risks, and also those really important parts of how we like to do business and support the growth opportunities ahead. So I think I see this real pivot happening now where there's a lot of exciting conversations about getting ready for what's coming, but also sort of almost rethinking that mobility platform end to end.
Wow, what a world. And thank you for breaking that down for us. You've spoken a bit about now and the excitement of what's to come, but maybe take us back in terms of the journey of how we've got to this point. What are maybe some key trends that you've kind of seen evolve over time, just so people can understand what is so magnificent about the future. I think sometimes it takes looking back to fully appreciate, where you can get to. So would love it if you could break that down for us.
I think I'll probably see it in 3 phases, and we've had the great privilege to work through all of these phases, most of us in our sort of work careers. And I think the first phase was really where people started creeping in their mobility started in consumer, and people started using mobility more and more for work, often bringing their own device, maybe starting to make phone calls and text messages and simple tools. Obviously we then had the great revolution with the smartphone and making more things possible, adding email and exciting things like that. And at that point, I think real business adoption started and saying, well, actually, no, this is a serious work tool for a serious number of executives, and we'll make sure they can get email and voice calls on the move. And it was still a little bit limited, a little bit premium, and we had a nice phase where everyone would sort of get the latest device and be happy, but it wasn't really supporting every worker and all sorts of work. Then, of course, and I think this is really where we are now, where almost everyone can be enabled by mobility. Everyone's part of the distributed workforce. It's not just people at the field and the front line. It's not people working from home. It's not people on the commute. It's all of that. It's everyone. So everyone's job can be improved by their adoption of mobile technologies, but it can also enhance their lives and keep them safe and keep them well. So organisations are thinking about, well, how am I going to be able to make this affordable and sustainable and secure, to design for that today. But if we look at the phase we're going into, where we've got the level of network innovation with 5G now and 5G slicing coming and brilliant network quality, but you've also got AI, and AI is happening on the device. The biggest innovations in AI are really on-device AI, and that's because when we're consuming it, we're consuming AI off our mobile devices, and there's a huge global opportunity if you've got great on-device AI ideas to distribute that out to a global marketplace. So every day we're seeing new innovations coming with on the device. And again, for organisations, it's, well, how do you run at a pace to harness that, but don't develop a blind spot and ignore it, because that's going to be a gateway to all sorts of challenges and problems. And we've seen this before. If we don't help people with the tools that are out there that could help them, they will help themselves. And if they help themselves, that won't necessarily mean that your corporate information is going into the right places or being stored in the right way, or it won't mean that you're necessarily using good actors with good, secure privacy and data management. So we've got to make sure we get the balance right with how we design it today for those future innovations that are coming, and don't hold our people back, but also make sure that the whole ecosystem is designed to be affordable, sustainable, secure.
Wow. I mean, you've mentioned a little bit about AI, and I think it's a hot topic. It has been for the past couple of years. I mean, how would you bring to life the collaboration of AI and mobility for people who don't even really see the opportunity in that space? Are there any examples that you can call upon?
Oh, there's so much in this, and every day I see something new that's really exciting. I think we've already seen with some of the early releases of on-device AI that simple things like recording your call, transcribing it, summarising it is really valuable, translating it is really valuable, and that's a great productivity gain for a lot of people. Now, the danger is that if that isn't available to you and you've seen other people be more productive, you're probably going to maybe get your personal phone to record the meeting for you instead. Or maybe you buy a little device off Amazon to do it. And then where's your corporate data gone? So I think organisations saying, well, actually, transcription and translation and summary is really useful, and we'll give a limited number of Copilot licenses out, but we can't afford it for everyone. The everyone is getting productivity work hacks off Instagram and inventing it themselves and bringing it themselves. So if the policy doesn't support ideas as simple as that, where's it going to go next? I think there's also, more on the work and the productivity apps, there's a huge amount of work changes where we're seeing things like workflow, the CRM systems feeding you your customer information, feeding you the analytics of the work environment you're in to help you make decisions. Simple field worker tools where you can literally be out in the environment and the AI could overlay, well, this is how you might fix this piece of equipment, or this is where the relevant piping or wiring is that you need to see. And there's plenty of very specific innovations coming from those work tools that are helping people. And you're seeing possibly in some cases, as many as 40 different work apps being loaded up on those devices. And each one of those work apps might end up having its own AI innovation to help that app work better or faster, or to help that person be more productive.
Wow. Well, I mean, thank you for the examples, because I think that can often bring to life the reality of the opportunity. And, you mentioned, I guess, employees going away and finding the solutions to their own problems. I know historically there's been things in the press where someone's been excited about ChatGPT and then they've gone on and uploaded customer data. There was a whole spin-off about that. So I feel like what you've been able to describe there can help paint this picture of actually organizations can get ahead of that, and actually give their people what they need to do, their jobs better. So yeah, again, thank you for breaking that down. I I think it might be interesting to now switch gears and look more at the problems. I know you meet with many customers on a regular basis, and like I said at the beginning, technology, and part of the reason I like it is because it is the solution to so many, real world problems. So, I mean, what have you seen in terms of customer pain points and the challenges they've been going through, and maybe trends and common things that the audience might be able to relate with potentially?
It's a great time for sharing, because often one challenge is, and the solutions to that challenge can help another organisation. So a few things that we're seeing that are in common, in no particular order. I think first of all is sort of, how do you plot your way through this? How do you navigate what you're going to be designing for in the future, as well as what solutions you can solve today? And that takes, quite often it's a team game. It's a team game of working with partners to say, well, actually, how am I going to design my priorities and choose how I set this up, but also how I future-proof it. What you don't want to do is end up with a poor quality device from a poor quality supply chain on a poor quality network and contracted into that for the next couple of years, just when there's a revolution happening in needing a really good network and on-device AI. So it's designing and thinking through what are the different use cases and the different returns on investment I can get from my mobility strategy. And the more use cases and the more returns on investment you can design, the more you can afford a great device on a great network. And the use cases might be, well, health and safety. How do I make sure that my people can always get home safe and well? And plus, on top of that, I'm going to avoid fines or the publicity disaster and the harm to my people. So there's quite a good investment case around health and safety. There's a good investment case, obviously, around productivity, about being real time, about customer experience, employee retention. So developing the use cases and sharing where other organisations have got their return on investment is important. I think making it affordable. And there's lots of levers to make it affordable. Things like leasing, things like refurbished devices, entry-level devices that might be shared between more than one user with secure logons, which can also help. And it's important, I think, to think through that rather than necessarily just say, well, bring your own device and we'll just put, business eSIM on it. Sometimes it might be better to work out how to make the corporate device affordable, and then the person can upload a personal eSIM to it. And that way then you've got a nice, secure, high quality platform. You know where the device has come from. It's got nothing loaded onto it because you've got the supply chain integrity, and you've got a great device to motivate someone with that you can secure and fix quickly when it's broken, or troubleshoot quickly because you've got a complete grasp of that inventory. I think there's also the compliance and policy, and thinking through what policies do we need to make sure we can support. So NIS2 or NIS2 is now saying, well, your device ecosystem is part of the compliance. And most of the regulation that our customers need to work to will need to consider the mobility ecosystem and the design and the security and the sustainability of that ecosystem. There's things like people policies, how much work-life balance can you encourage, how much tracking is allowed, how much insight and support, and that will vary between organisations, and getting that balance right. So again, I think that's a question of saying, well, what works for your organisation and your policy, but also how have other organisations got this balance right? So there's a lot to consider.
Yeah, there definitely sounds like there is. And I mean, at the beginning of your answer, you mentioned it's the time for sharing. I guess I'm just curious to understand whether there are forums where you bring customers together to kind of share their journey around mobility. Does that exist today? If someone wants to go and start exploring, and blogs or anything like that, resources that you can suggest?
I think there's a few different things. We do a lot of events, whether or not it's customer advisory board for some of our largest global customers, or events and seminars. We often bring our partners in. We do things like the Security Festival, Sustainability Festival. And if you come to those festivals or follow them online, mobility is at the heart of security, it's at the heart of sustainability, so that all the adjacencies will also have mobility at the core. And we've got great opportunities to network with customers and bring our partners in. We've also got fantastic sales teams, and behind them specialists and pre-sales people and product teams whose passion it is to share these ideas. So I think there's plenty of resources out there. And there's plenty of opportunity, but we'd always like to hear, well, what would be even more effective for engaging and support, and what more could we do as well. The other thing that's obviously unusual for mobile is we have our retail stores, and in the retail stores we have our regional business advisors as well. So for a lot of our smaller businesses, that's really helpful. They might not always have a dedicated account manager, they might not always have the time to talk to a dedicated account manager, but having the opportunity just to walk into an EE store and get help can sometimes be really valuable as well.
Fantastic. So many touch points to get a bit of advice and learn from the experts in the field. So I'm sure many people will find a lot of solace in understanding not only more about mobility, but actually how they can take action today. So thank you for sharing. So now to the future, right? So cyber attacks are increasing 50% year on year on mobile devices. How can we be preparing ourselves for the future? What does the future look like?
So this is a massive consideration when designing mobility. And exactly as you said, it's a really attractive surface for the criminals and the bad actors to attack. And there's lots of reasons for that. We're on mobile devices all the time. We're on it with critical work information, customer information, access to key systems. So if you can access someone's mobile device, you can do an awful lot of damage to an organisation. And I think the other thing is about human behaviour. When we're on our work devices, we're often a bit distracted. You know, we might be really busy, there might be lots of other things happening in our environment, we might be rushing to get something done, and before we know it, we've clicked on something, and then we're in trouble. So attacks are definitely on the increase. It's causing a lot of sleepless nights for a lot of organisations, and it takes quite a lot to design the right protection and support for users so that protection is easy to use but secure, has the right ability to stop the bad actors getting in. But then if they do, it can be detected and the threat can be managed. And thinking through where all of those different threats could come from, it could be the supply chain. Do you know where your devices have come from? Have they come from a credible, responsible supplier who's got supply chain integrity and proof of where that device came from, and proof that device has not been tampered with at all before it even gets to you? Do you know when you're downloading software or applications that they've been built appropriately and are properly secured? And as well as then, if something unusual is happening, how is it being detected? I think the other side of it as well is when you think about the threats that are out there, how do you train your users and help your users to be, what everyone talks about as the human firewall? And obviously a lot of that training is enabled, very well through the mobile device itself. So, people can listen to a podcast or watch a quick video whilst they're on the move and just refresh how they can help be part of the solution as well.
So, this is why people need to wake up and pay attention, because I don't know how obvious it might be for a lot of organizations that, device is directly, linked and connected to security. But this is something that people need to, start taking seriously and.
And don't worry alone. There's help out there. We've got great partnerships, and BT's got an incredible security capability. And I have the good fortune to be able to tap into those teams and those partnerships and make sure that the design and the expertise and the qualifications are all part of it to help. I think it's also through the undesigned threats as well. And this is where, if end users don't necessarily get the innovation they want, they might find their own solutions to problems. So, they might go out and get their own on AI applications, and where that information's going, or whether or not that is letting in some bad actors, needs to be considered. So supporting the user appetite for innovation and recognising that perhaps if we don't help them innovate, they might innovate themselves, and some of that innovation may not necessarily be as secure as our company policies or our compliance or our regulation needs it to be, is also part of that mobility design. And there's lots of opportunity to make mistakes, if I'm honest, and it can be very, very, very scary.
So we've spoken a bit about security in terms of the threats, but also the opportunity to get ahead of it in the future of mobility. But talk to us a bit about the post-app era. What does this mean? And again, what is the opportunity and then also risk around that?
So I think I quite like this term post-app era, and the reason why is because we can all relate to it, and we can all relate to the fact that when we look at our mobile devices, there's a whole heap of stuff that we can do there, but it's all in separate apps. So if you think about a day in the life, our alarm goes off, we turn that off, we might check the train or the roads, we might check our diary in our first meeting, we might try and get the notes from our first meeting, we might try and work out if it's going to be snowing or raining and how we're going to get to work feeling warm and dry. But before we've even left the house, we might have looked at 4 or 5 different apps, and then to do our job, there might be another 30 apps to look at. That can actually be quite overwhelming and quite frustrating because you're constantly flicking through the screen going, and trying to piece it together. And then the train company says, your train's running late, and then you have to notify the person that you're running, and it just becomes quite, all that stuff that's turned up to help us is actually then turned up to annoy us because it's overwhelming. So post-app era is quite exciting, I think. It's like, well, actually, just get your avatar to do that for you. Just get a digital AI assistant to do that for you. And we're used to chatting away to Alexa or Siri or other tools from Google to say what we want to say and what's the weather like, what's my first appointment. But why don't we just delegate all of that to the on-device AI? So I can see that people will I almost think of it as a slide to the right. We have a little slide that says I'm all in delegating to this AI to help me be efficient today, and other people might say, do you know what, no, I'm not. I want to control my day and have it all segmented and private, and I don't want to have a virtual assistant running that for me because it's too controlling, it's too overwhelming. Maybe I don't trust its security or its integrity or its ethics. Maybe I don't want that level of filtering in what it's going to tell me to do with my day. And I think people will choose different levels of opting in, but it will depend. But that's really what how I interpret the post-app era is that we'll be moving away from that individual sort of siloed information to something that's much more brought together and curated for us, so that we can organise our time and do what humans do best, which is create new stuff.
Exactly. Very exciting world indeed. I mean, I'm even just thinking about, again, where we've come from and where we're going. I know we had a little conversation off camera about, your life as a mother and, being a career woman at the same time. I imagine what this technology could have done for you, years ago, in trying to get the most out of your career, but also, be a mother and handle just the waves of life. Like the opportunity of what the future could look like is so exciting. So.
And this is why it's so important to have the quality behind it, because the outcome, I think, is really exciting. But if you're sitting there watching that spinny disc going round and round because you haven't got network coverage, or you've got poor network experience, or maybe everything's interfering in the way you hadn't imagined because you haven't got a device from a legitimate supply chain, or the applications haven't really been developed to work well together, then it can become frustrating as well and very disabling. So that's why we're saying, think about the end-to-end and think about how all that time with the opportunity that we're giving could also be frustration if the ecosystem, if the cloud architecture, if the security, and if the interworking isn't set up. So it's an opportunity. I think it will massively differentiate organisations that can get this right and navigate. It'd be hugely empowering for their people.
Yeah, I think getting to the sweet, getting to the cherry on top is the post-app era, right? But like you've said, there's so much around that needs to then exist to allow organizations to actually, get the value out of that. So, I mean, when you've spoken about the end-to-end journey, what advice would you give around building a strategy around, mobility that organizations can start thinking about today?
Well, I think you nailed it in your question, really. It's end-to-end. It's how do you think about it as end-to-end, and how do you think about all those different components? And network is part of it, and the network choice is part of it. Making sure that you've got a good quality network, and that you've got the access, enough data allowance or enough voice and text and roaming allowance, not crippling people because there's not enough capability for them to do what they need to do. But with that comes the device and the device design, the application design, and the future proofing of it. So we think that it is about an end-to-end design, and even if you don't buy it all from one place, make sure it's going to work together, and make sure that you've got the best expertise to get the best practice, and think about where the innovations are happening. Because when I look at eSIM, no one needs to fiddle around with a physical SIM card anymore. That's a terrible thing to make someone do, let alone terrible for the planet. But even a QR code is rapidly becoming a very dated way of uploading your right to access a network and the different services you can see on that network. So we would always try and get people to use eSIM deployed to device, or a subscription transfer or seamless download. So that means it's effortless to get the device set up. No plastics involved. Little as 14 seconds, you can get a new user set up or move a user from a different network. And there's no delay or security risk from a physical SIM or QR code. And sounds like a tiny thing, but it's a tiny thing that multiplies up quite quickly in terms of user frustration or effort or sustainability harm. I think also thinking about the device circularity and how the eSIM is obviously one way of reducing the scope emissions, but also device management can have a huge impact on the sustainability. And we all know that these small acts multiply up massively. So if your devices come from a reliable source, at the end of its useful life for your organisation, being able to securely wipe it and then make sure that it's refurbished perhaps for someone else or fully recycled is really important. Making sure that you can calculate the carbon impact of that life cycle, and making sure that you can manage that life cycle so the user gets their new device and can securely hand back their old device. All of that really helps manage carbon footprint, and it's respectful. And I think people at work feel valued when they get a great device, but also feel the values firsthand of the organisation when they see that device is going through that circularity journey in the right way, and it's not causing another sort of e-waste mountain somewhere. So I think even those parts of it need to be considered to be part of a successful mobility strategy.
Wow, there's a lot to take in there. I mean, when you look at your customers and the different industries that you interact with, do you think there are particular industries that are further ahead than others in terms of having that strategy?
It's a great question, and I would say I see elements of innovation in every industry. There's some real market leaders who are really considering what they can be doing, and I think they're really inspiring, and I think they will be leaders in their sector because of it. And they might be considering the impact on attracting the best talent, keeping people safe and well. Mobile devices are brilliant for ensuring people get home safely. Apple Watch and the wearables are brilliant for ensuring people have checked in and checked out. If they've had a fall, if they've had a change to a health indicator, they're always on. So we're seeing some really powerful innovations for lone workers, for people travelling home after events, for people that are checking in and out of client sites, for health, so against the health and safety agenda. We're seeing organisations thinking how they can change the level of productivity. One of a really good case studies what Openreach has done, which is a sister company to BT, but their 30,000 engineers are doing one of the biggest civil build projects in Europe, a really successful project rolling out fibre. And those 30,000 engineers all have brand new phones. Their work is their cab. Their cab is completely mobilised, and those different applications are innovating all the time. So it doesn't just have the map of the building, maybe where the signal is strong, maybe the cabling system around it, the covers. It will also have a LiDAR map of the road, and now we're looking at other ways that we can use on-device AI to map it in sort of a 3D way, so it's even easier for the field engineers to do their work. There's tremendous innovation happening there, and I think they are quite a good benchmark in a lot of the field work. But we're seeing work in the health sector, in education, in police, that again is very exciting, and helping each one of those areas do what they need to do with the best enablement.
Amazing. Well, thank you again for sharing, just the flavour of what's going on, across society and across industries. And I'm sure, whoever's listening to this will be inspired and have learned so much more about mobility than, when they first started watching the video, because I certainly did myself. So yeah, thank you so much, Sally.
Thank you, Samantha. Loved it. It's great to see you.